Parent Champion journey?
No, I actually had the referral from Rachel to the speech and language initially.
Okay.
So, and that was for a Better Start. So she referred me to a Better Start speech and language.
Was that long after becoming a parent?
No,
champion?
that was actually before. It was
Okay.
when we did like the introduction one.
Okay. Yeah.
And she was telling me about the services and stuff because I'd never really heard of the Better
Yeah.
Start before that. It was actually Jen that approached me and was like, "Oh, do you want to be a parent champion?" And I was like, "Okay, I don't know what I'm doing, but all right." Yeah, no. So it was actually Rachel that referred me to the speech and language, and they then put me on like their course. I think it was like a 3-week course. But the problem is like Ophelia had, she was very good with her words, but she didn't know how to use them. So they were doing like more like, oh, you've got a bag of items, you take it out and you go, oh, what's it say, it say, it say. And she was like, oh, it's this, it's that. Like there was one particular thing where it was a plate, but it was a hexagon shape. And she was like, it's a hexagon. I was like, of course you say the hexagon, not a plate. But they then was like, no, we still believe that she has a problem with her communication. So they then referred me to the clinician.
Okay.
And then it was the clinician and then done the report for her ASD. Yes, yeah, and then they took it to the Lighthouse and stuff.
And in terms of the support you got from ABS projects moving forward, what else did you access?
So we done Chaos and Calm.
Yeah.
It was through that, and we absolutely loved Chaos and Calm. I just saw her grow like so much through that. And Elaine and Hannah, who run Chaos and Calm, I can't fault them. They're just amazing.
So how many sessions did you do with
We
Chaos?
did 2 a week. So we had Thursday morning, which was a story time, and then Friday afternoon, which was at Blenheim Family Centre. And they did everything. Just every week was something different. Or the story time was 3 weeks, the same story.
Okay.
And they done just so many different senses. They did like drawings on the board. Like it was brilliant. She was able to just go in, relax, be herself. No one was judging. It was brilliant. Same with the Friday afternoon. That was really good as well. They just had different themes every week. So many different sensory things. Like one tray full of like they did a rainbow made out of sugar, like coloured all the sugar, which was. I mean, obviously all the kids were then like, yeah, this is great. What else did I? So I had peer support worker.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's early years or that's ABS.
Yeah, it is early years,
Yeah. And I had Laura, and she was excellent. She gave me like the courage to actually go to Chaos and Calm and was like, go to this, like you'll feel better about it. What else did I get? It was mostly just the speech and language, I think, and Chaos and Calm.
Yeah. And with the with your experience on those two, did you see Ophelia develop?
Yes, 100%.
and thrive in those spaces, and then outside those spaces?
Yeah, so it gave me the confidence to be able to take her to other SEND groups as well. But at Chaos and Calm, they were just so loving to her. Like every child that walked in, it was like, oh, it's like the best thing they've ever, like they've been waiting all day to see her. It was like, oh, Ophelia, we're so pleased to see you. And yeah, she just loved it. She just was able to be as relaxed and herself as, yeah, it was really lovely, really lovely. And we even went the other day when she had an inset day. So, and they were like, oh, it's so nice to see you. And it was just really lovely. You walk in and you're like, this is so warm, like really special.
Yeah. And with the speech and language, that was a different setup, or?
So that was, where was that? That was at the Cambridge Children's Centre.
Cambridge Road, yeah.
Cambridge Road. And that was about 3 children, and they just sort of were like, oh, that was the one main task that I remember them doing, but they had like these little wind up toys, and they'd be like, oh, ready, 1, 2, 3, and then obviously they'd try and encourage the children to say, oh, go, or this, that, or ready, steady, go, or whatever. So that was quite good. But I do remember this distinctive bag, and she's literally like, "Oh yeah." She was, you could just tell she was like, "I know what I'm saying," but then obviously not being able to just literally say to her, "How are you today?" Like, so yeah.
So she could identify objects.
Oh.
And but she couldn't put them together.
Couldn't put it together. No, I wouldn't literally be able to have a chat with her. Still sometimes struggles now, but much better.
So in September, Ophelia started school.
She did.
And would you say that those experiences that you've had with Chaos and Calm and speech and language
100%.
have really supported this transition to school?
Definitely. And I think with Chaos and Calm, they did like a getting ready for school. Quite a lot of the children that were in her like little group all were starting school as well. So I think they were trying to like do, let's get ready for school. Like, you know, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. They did an art piece every week. They did had toys out every week, and then they'd have like sensory trays out every week. So it's all, but you never knew what you were going to get. You'd always walk in, you'd be like, what's this week? And Elaine always baked cakes on a Friday, so it was always great for us as well. It was really fun.
Yeah, and she's doing good at school.
She loves it. Loves it.
Yeah,
it's been a bit chaotic with Christmas, but now today, first day back, she's like, right, let's go. I'm like, been up since 5:30 this morning, so that's lovely. But yeah, it's good.
Is there anything else?
Don't worry.
Anything else we want to talk about?
Is anything else you want? Anyone else?
I'm so sorry if you told this.
Go on.
But my only thought, because I was doing that awful thing of checking emails while also trying to listen, is perhaps maybe how do I phrase this? What do you think the impact might have been on your life and Ophelia's life if that support hadn't been there? So if you had the support workers, and have you already, I'm so sorry.
I would have not ever had the confidence to go out and actually go to SEND groups. I don't think. I don't think I'd have had the confidence to do that.
So if you hadn't had access to the ABS group, the ABS support, and not that confidence, then you wouldn't have seen the progress that Ophelia has gained.
And even for myself, like, you know, having a child with SEND, trying to learn them is very difficult anyway. Trying to know what their triggers are, you know, you could be out and then something sets her off and you just don't know what it is, and but to be able to go to safe spaces that you then are able to just feel relaxed and free and just, it's made a massive impact. Massive. So I think. And I recommended other parents to it as well. They're like, "Oh, it's so good." I was like, "Thank you. I'm so glad you go." So
you feel like you're an ambassador.
Yeah. And I did a blog post for Chaos and Calm as well with the Better Start, and that's like one of my sort of proud moments where I'm like, talking about neurodiversity, but I'm experiencing it now, and I'm like, I know I can talk about it and feel confident about it. So. Okay. Yeah. Actually, didn't have her at preschool. She had to leave her preschool that she was at, so I had her home from me from January. The preschool just didn't know how to look after her properly, so I had her with me from January to September, and it was a very long time, obviously, to have her every day, all day, you know, trying to do things. I mean, the parent champion thing was quite lucky because everyone knew Ophelia, they knew me. It was able to be quite comfortable to come into this safe space as well. But having those other groups and having the support worker, because I literally had the support worker for 6 weeks just before she turned 4, and they were like, right, let's go to here, let's try this one and this one, and then, you know, I'll go with you. I want you to feel confident and comfortable to do that. And as soon as I walked in, I could just feel like every parent felt the same, and they were all like, okay, so my child's going through the same thing as yours is, and if your child's going to have a meltdown, it doesn't matter because I understand. Whereas if you go into just a typical playgroup or whatever and your child's screaming because they've been triggered by a certain noise, and I just had so many parents always staring at me all the time. And I was like, actually, this is the one time where I've walked in and felt so much more comfortable. and been like, actually, I'm all right now. Like, doesn't matter what she does. Like, whatever. She screams, running around screaming, or she's sitting there not doing anything, or she's having a minute, or, you know, yeah.
So those safe spaces, not just for you but for Ophelia as
Yeah.
well,
Oh.
means that she's not restricted
No.
or blamed or.
No, you could tell that she clearly
She knows
felt
that afterwards
comfortable.
she will like, oh, okay, just carry back on again. Yeah.
Yeah, I could just tell with her that she just felt like she was with like-minded people, and I think the same with the parents. Like, I've got like a group of mums from Chaos and Calm. We all went to a birthday party, so we got invited to a party, and we all sat together, and it was really lovely. And we're all chatting and like, oh, how's like this one getting on at school, and how's this doing? And it was just really nice. And we're all like, and we all just know what we're all going through. Like, some had more sort of severe ASD, some not, but they were just like, one of them was like really like tense. I was like, just relax, it's fine. Like, we're all in the same boat. She's like, okay. But yeah, so
sometimes you just need to find your tribe.
yeah, that was
and
it.
that's
And the
where-
same thing with the parent champions. I mean, I found my people. Like, it's been great.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Send experience in creche.
Okay.
So we could talk about what that journey's been like. So maybe from your first experiences in creche, and then how that's developed, or how your child's developed in the confidence within the creche, maybe.
Go on, you go
I mean,
first.
well, I've got a few different experiences, because when Ophelia was not doing great at preschool, I actually spoke to them, because I'd been looking after her for about over a year, so they knew her by that point, and I sort of said, oh, you know, she's really struggling. They've done this, that, and the other. I don't think she's like, I just don't think she should go back. And they were like, no, that's fine. And one of the, actually, she's agency, Billy, she was like, that's discrimination. You need to do this. And she literally gave me all this information. Like, she packed me out with so much information. And I was like, she's like, you need to do this, 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 and this. This is the best way to deal with this. This is the best way to deal with this. This is that. And I was like, but you know, it's just like,
So
she was
that
so
knowledge,
knowledgeable.
Yeah.
She was able to give me everything that I needed to know. She told me I should make a complaint, but I didn't. I was just like, I was too stressful at the time. I wish I had now, but at the time I was like, it's just too stressful. But she was brilliant. She was able to tell me that. But they also knew how to manage Ophelia. Like, they could tell when she was not coping well, when she was having a bit of a bad time, because she had sort of obviously sound problems, so when she needed the ear defenders, when she didn't, like, and she got so comfortable that she was able to take herself off, and they would leave her alone and be like, right, she just clearly needs a minute. She'd sit in the little reading corner, she'd have a look at some books and whatever, calm herself down and carry on. So, but they knew when to like leave her and when to not. So it was
Ophelia learnt that skill, self-regulation
Yeah.
as well, so she understood.
in there, because it was a safe space for
she
her.
knows she could step away and
Yeah.
then come back again.
And they don't have too many kids in there. That's what I find is
It's really
like
nice.
a real difference.
Yeah.
Like, because in a nursery, it's like 1 to 13 now, which is crazy. Just saying, it is crazy. But in the creche, I don't even know what the ratio is, but it's
I think it's
way,
like
way,
1
way
to
low.
2 in there. 1 to 3
1 to
maybe?
3 at the most, I think. And it's just such a major difference for the kids,
Yeah.
especially if they do have extra stuff going on. Like, I think you were really lucky that Ophelia actually went in, but I had a long time where Rafa wouldn't even go in.
Yeah.
Like, as soon as there's another child, he won't even want to go in a room. And then I had a similar problem with nursery, that I had to take him out of the nursery because he couldn't handle it. And it's taken a long time, but he did like go in the creche eventually. And he loves the ladies now, but he still struggles when there's other kids there. But obviously there's going to be other kids there.
Yeah.
But
That's
yeah.
him socially, isn't it? That's the
He just
thing.
can't-
He's learning.
yeah,
he's
he's
still
learning.
learning though. He's only young. Like, he will
Yeah,
learn.
yeah. So it's similar thing. I said to the ladies, he's got some issues. We don't know what they are yet. I didn't get maybe the information pack that you
No,
got.
no, Billy
I
was
think you
really
were
good.
lucky,
I was-
lucky there.
No.
Um,
If you spoke to
but
Billy,
yeah.
she'd probably help you out as well.
Yeah.
But yeah. No,
But
she's
yeah, been lucky
I have been really lucky. Really lucky.
because I can like go to stuff now and I can just drop him, and he's just looked after really well, and they just know him. and they understand that he needs time just with adults, and he wants to talk about his shiny things rather than play with other children. And he's relaxed there, and he doesn't like freak out and have to leave, you know. And not just that creche, the Chaos and Calm creche, because when Chaos and Calm did the creche for the what is it for?
Southend Send Independent Forum.
Yeah, so then they do that, and he loves that creche. Like, even it wasn't the same. Going into there, he was even more relaxed because he knows the space, and he knows the Chaos and Calm ladies because they're the same ones that do the stories that Sophie recommended me to go. I was one of the people that she said, why don't you go, and I was putting it off. I was like, oh, I don't know if Rafi's got anything though, but he does. I was like, oh, I don't think he needs to go. Maybe, I don't know, I had this idea that it needed to be more severe kids or something, that had more issues, like Rafi wasn't that bad and stuff like that. But then I see him in the creche and he just can't cope at all when there's other kids. And I just think, well, actually,
Doesn't.
he does need that. So then he got used to those people in Chaos and Calm, and they were there in the room that he knows, and he just walked in like it was nothing, and just was happy. And they had all the sensory play stuff, and
After you leave creche on a session, do either of the children talk about their day in creche or their time in creche?
I mean, no, but that's because she doesn't really communicate with me. But every time I pick her up, she's like, Mummy! Like, but really excited, like in a nice way. She doesn't have a meltdown or anything else. I'm like, you had fun? Yeah. And that's positive. Like, that's happy, she's smiling, you know, every single time. Sometimes it was a bit like, you're not dropping me off there again, are you? I was like, no. But yeah, she would then come out and be like, Mummy, that was great. You could just tell by like the attitude and the way she's sort of walking on air, like.
So the children learn some expectations. They understand that they're going into creche.
Yeah.
It's for a couple of hours maybe. It will have the same people I'm used to. It will have the similar time toys that I'm used to.
Yeah.
She knows he's going to
and the team know the kids.
Play with them. Yeah.
They know what toys they like, so they can, if they know certain kids are coming, they can actually get stuff out that they know those children will play with. So it's like, it's not just like a random creche.
No, they
do
think about it every time.
Yeah,
They definitely do think about it every time.
even like, you know, we were talking about the cola bottle effect.
Yeah.
He doesn't have it when he goes to creche,
No,
but he has it everywhere else, but he never has it there, because anything he needs or he needs to ask whatever, even though he's not very good at communicating, they are there, and it's a short amount of time, and it's not too much for him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, she feels the same.
Could you just tell us about the cola bottle effect?
Okay, so, well, Sophie can do this one because we were literally talking about it.
So children that have ASD generally mask where they go, so they try and act normal.
Yeah.
Well, what they consider as seeing is normal. And then where they like confine all their emotions, and you know, it could be a matter of the child's been hearing a scratching noise the whole time, and then a clicking, and then something else, and then they're getting all irritated, holding that emotion, and then as soon as they're in a space that's safe, they'll then just explode. So it's literally like having a bottle of Coca-Cola, shaking it up, opening it, taking the lid off, and just exploding. It's a terminology that people use when we've got neurodiverse children. They know, like, oh, it's the, like, trying to confine those emotions. I think for children that have, like, it must be exhausting. Like, it generally must be exhausting. Like,
but it's hard for, like, I think it's hard for, like, people who look after these kids and they don't know that there's anything wrong.
No.
Because they think these children, there's no issue. Because it's literally as soon as you walk out the gate, that is when it happens.
Yeah.
And they say, oh, but they're fine, they're playing, they're nice,
because they spend the day masking.
They're masking it the whole time. They seem normal. What Rafi does, you know how loud he is, right? He's the loudest child in the world. At nursery, he doesn't talk to anyone. He's quiet.
And
Do you know
that's
what
the
I
thing, and
mean?
that's when you know that he's clearly trying to hide.
He's trying to subdue everything.
Yeah.
Everything is like calm
Yeah.
down, and then as soon as he comes out, he's like running around like a little crazy thing, bouncing off the wall,
This is
literally
it.
bouncing off the walls.
Yeah.
I went to a Sen group for the first time ever, and they had like soft play on the walls, and he literally just bounced between the walls. So he does do that, like he bounces off the walls, like real. But yeah,
But that's what that space is for, isn't it? So,
Yeah.
yeah.
it was
Can I
good.
ask you a question?
Go on.
So what's it like for you both as parents when you know that your child is in a crash, that when they're having a good time and they're safe? And
I
what
find
does that
it
do for you?
so relaxing.
It is. I
I'm
don't
able
worry.
to just, I'm able to just come and be involved with whatever conversation or meeting or project or whatever, knowing that I don't have to worry about her. And normally she's like 2 doors down, so I'm able to just be like, oh, it's alright. And they not always know if there's a problem, they'll come and get me. Like, I only think they've ever had to do that once where she's really struggled. And normally it's when she doesn't feel well. Like, if you don't, like, when a child of a, or Sen child has a cold or whatever, their senses are more heightened, so her brain's more foggy than normal, and obviously then you're like, everything else is even more irritating than it normally is. So, and I think it's quite hard for her to process stuff, because she did used to have like a sensory processing disorder as well. I think she's still got it, but it's nowhere near as bad as it used to be. But it used to be she can be in like cafes, so someone making a coffee, just normal sounds, like you just day-to-day sounds that you just don't even think about. Be in a restaurant and they drop their cutlery in the cutlery drawer, and it's just like she'll start screaming. I'm like, and you just don't know what's going to be the next thing, and then you start to learn and you start to listen, and now I'm like, everything I'm really jumpy at now because
You're like getting ready for
literally
it.
ready for it, and
Yeah.
actually she's absolutely fine, but you know, we just like that time of learning all those things that are triggers
I guess,
and things.
yeah, and I guess that's some regulation that she's learnt as well.
Yes.
Hasn't she? So
Yes.
So rather than living in a fight or flight
Yeah.
mode
Yeah,
continuously, she's learned that actually there's some spaces where she doesn't need that, and she's like, okay, so maybe they don't. Maybe so I don't. You know, I'm guessing
of
that that's
course.
how that works.
Yeah.
You know?
So I think sometimes she's like, oh, actually, I know what that noise is now.
Yeah.
So therefore, I can work out what that noise is. But obviously, when she was younger,
She didn't have
got,
the verbal.
no, and you've got all these things happening all at once.
It's like a noise they don't know, and when it comes without any warning, it's much more stressful.
Yeah.
Like, because I have that issue with Rafi, because he gets really upset with children crying.
Mm-hmm.
So
I
when
really used to, funny enough.
yeah, so other children crying sets him off, and he can't handle it. So when in the beginning he wouldn't settle in the creche, because if there was any other child that was upset, he wouldn't go in. Like, he literally just wouldn't go in, like he was going to die or something if he went in the room. So I just couldn't put him in. I mean, I think you remember he would be in here a lot, like in things, and he wouldn't leave me alone, and he's like quite clingy as
Yeah,
well.
I feel like it's quite recent that he's turned a corner though.
Yeah,
isn't it?
he
Like,
definitely has.
He's
He likes-
definitely turned a corner.
He's just suddenly become much more confident with this team. He knows he's safe. He knows all of the people there now. Even he knows all the kids. Not that he interacts with any of them, but he knows them. He knows they exist. He will just say, "Oh, I don't like so and so." Like, but he knows they exist now.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, before, he didn't even know they exist. He still ignores them, but he knows they exist.
Yeah. Well, that's fun.
Yeah, we're getting there. It's a step. It's a bit of a step up, you know, that he knows the existence of them now. But yeah, I used to really worry, like especially when I felt like he hadn't gone in well, like when he didn't really settle because there was another child crying, and then I would have to wait, and I'd be like waiting, and then I'd have to like someone else would go and check for me, and then but as soon as he was fine, then I felt so much better, you know, and had that sort of same feeling. And I get that now, that he literally goes in every time now. Like, I don't have that issue anymore.
Yeah,
That feeling, the shoulders drop.
And it's all
yeah.
like,
so long.
yeah.
And then all of a sudden you go,
I do that as soon as I walk through this building.
yeah, tell
literally
me
the
about
same.
it.
As soon as I walk through the door, I'm like, this is my second home.
And
Like,
Rafi's
I know
like,
this place.
Rafi's like, not
like my
Sam's
house.
again. I'm like,
yeah. It is
Yeah.
for now. Yeah.
So it's not so it's not just the kids' safe space. It's,
for us as well.
yeah.
We know we're going to go and have be around like-minded people, be around that know us, be around that know my children, like my child, and you know that they know each other and
don't
things
judge
like,
you or anything,
No,
yeah, because we're like all
no.
comfortable. We got used to each other. We've had a long time getting used to each other
Yeah.
now. We worked on loads of projects together, like quite intense projects, some of them, and I think that sort of like that team building, you know. So we're like quite close knit team, I feel. So
Okay.
it's much more relaxing, like when you get to work with people that you're comfortable with.
But like with the creche as well, there was like Athena used to seek sensory in food. So if she's overwhelmed, she'll go, I'm hungry. Even though I know she's not hungry, well, most of the time I know she's not hungry, but like she'll go, Mummy, I'm hungry. And then I'll be like, well, you've eaten, so you don't need it. But it was like a
Rafi does
calming
the same,
thing.
yeah.
Like she'll
They
eat just
choose
to,
on things.
just to calm herself. But if I said to the creche team, I'm like, look, she's already eaten. She might tell you she's hungry. She's not, because she's literally had a massive lunch. Like, so they're understanding. They're like, okay, we won't give her any food then. Like, they will listen to what I want. And some, obviously, like other times she'll be like, oh, I'm hungry, and they'll go, okay, you can have a snack or whatever. But normally, if I say like, don't give her anything to eat or whatever, she's fine. She's had enough. We work together. There was a point where she didn't used to like children crying. And before I'd take her in, I'd be like, how many babies we got in the creche today? Just so I know, like, what's going to happen. And they were like, well, we've got this, this and this. You know, we'll manage it. If she doesn't do well, we'll come and get you. And 9 times out of 10, she was absolutely fine. But they would always communicate that with us. So.
Yeah, and now Rafi just sort of says, oh, there was noisy babies today. But he doesn't
But
like
that's
freak
managed,
out. Yeah, doesn't freak out. He just,
Yeah.
oh, they're being really noisy.
So,
He'll say that.
but they've always been really accommodating and just like, again, they've been looking after children for a long time, but they've only known like my child for 2 years, like, and it's a long time to get to know someone when they're only 2, like, but she's grown so much that even they were like, when I took her out of the preschool, they were like, God, she's so much happier now you've taken her out. Like, I remember Kaylee was literally said to me, she was like, you can notice the difference in her, the happier she is, the spring in her step again. Like, you could see how clearly this place wasn't looking after her very well, and just, I was like, that's really reassuring that actually I've made the right decision. And like,
Yeah, you notice the difference in your children, don't you, when you take them out?
But the fact that they noticed the difference in like an hour and a half of playing, like, that
Yeah,
she
she
wanted to
changed a
play.
lot, didn't
Yeah,
she?
she did. So yeah, it's really, really good.
Yeah, and now where she is now, she's obviously happy
Oh,
because
she
it's not
loves
the same.
it. No, she loves
It's
it.
not the same. But that's what I had to do as well. I had to take Rafi out of a school nursery, and he's in a playgroup now. But he had that time, you know, that gap where he didn't go anywhere because he just
Apart from here.
well, apart from here.
Yeah, and that was a saving grace for me as well. Coming here and having that creche and
Yeah, it
having
did
that
save
ability
us.
to like leave her in safe hands for 2 hours and have adult conversation was literally the thing that probably got me through a very difficult time.
Because especially as a child with special needs, they are a little bit more intense. Little bit. And it's exhausting. It's exhausting for us. It may be exhausting for them to cope with the world, but for us, it's exhausting because we have to manage all of that.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, manage them.
and their safety.
Yeah.
Like, I find that that's the hardest thing for me. Managing his safety is just so dangerous. He does not see danger in stuff. And it's actually scary, you know. You have to be. So it's good. I know that he's safe here. He can't go anywhere or hurt himself or do anything. He's being watched. Whereas I didn't feel like that at the nurseries.
No, I agree.
So and he came out with cuts, bruises, and various things I'm not going to go into, but it's because they can't watch 13 children.
No,
it's not possible. And he would get into lots of scrapes and things that they didn't even know what had happened. And I'd go home and I'd go, well, how did you do that? They didn't say anything. There's no log or anything. They don't even know.
No.
And I just feel like he's safe here. So it's you can feel relaxed if your child is safe, and then you can feel safe as well. Like,
It's it's even a matter of changing nappies and things as well, isn't it? Like that time you haven't got to be pulled out, so changing the nappy, they will happily do that as well. Like
Yeah, because not all creches do that.
no. So
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question? Is that all right?
Yeah.
Just hearing you talking about how when you know that they're safe and they're happy, you feel relaxed.
Yeah.
And you feel so much better in yourself, and that you get that moment away where you're not constantly switched on. You know,
Yeah,
2 hours you
yeah.
don't have to be switched on. Do you feel like having that break and being able to access that break regularly, do you feel like that's made you feel calmer? And then maybe that's also had an impact when you're with your children, because you're not constantly
Yes.
exhausted. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah,
You're
and
getting it.
it's been really hard over the Christmas holiday, I just have to say, because everything is closed. His playgroup was closed. That they run holiday clubs in his playgroup, and there's no holiday club over Christmas. So there's literally, he's not back until Friday. This is the first time that he's not been with me in like nearly 3 weeks. And I was just like, I need it, because like mentally I'm at the end of my string like all the time, like at the moment, because like without something like this, like a regular, it's like I get to actually breathe. Like I haven't been breathing for 3 weeks. Do you know what I mean? Like I can't do anything. He doesn't let me do anything. He doesn't even let me cook dinner. Like it's just like, it's been exhausting, and I'm just so happy that Christmas is finished. Like, do you know what I mean? So that there's that part of it, but even just regularly, just having that time, because I did qualify for the 2-year funding for nursery, so it's not like that I didn't have childcare, but that kind of childcare is not the same as this kind of childcare. Like this one, I get to do something constructive as well. So it's like there's a creche, but it's not just a creche and by, it's a creche with something. So either we're learning something, we're doing something, we're helping people, or we're making something, you know. But those kind of creches, they expect, nursery, like the 2-year-old, it's like go back to work type nursery, and it's like, bye, here, we'll take your kid, but they're not looked after properly. You worry about them the whole time.
of course you do.
And he came out not better for it, do you know what I mean? And he was getting ill from it, like mentally ill, and I was so happy I took him out. Do you know what I mean? But like I just wish that it was something that was more thought about, like how these children are being looked after in these kind of nurseries, because actually the standard is not what it should be, I don't think, anymore. And it's probably going to get worse, because it's money, isn't it? But what I really appreciated the creches, because you know that your children are being looked after, and you can then do something good as well. It's 2 parts to it, isn't it? It's not just about your child, it's about you as well. And I feel like I'm developing myself, and he's getting like support as well to break away from me, because I just feel like he's so attached to me. He doesn't go with anyone, but here he is happy to be with the other adults there.
I did the report as well, don't forget.
They're still doing it.
Oh,
I was just talking to them, yeah, so they're helping me with his referral as well, because I didn't get support from the nursery he was at, because they said he was fine. I know, they said he was fine, because he was doing that masking thing, and it was so obvious that he was masking as well, but he was so subdued and didn't really do anything, and he was so quiet in there, but he was hurting himself, like he was like hurting his fingers and they were bleeding, and he would come home like with fingers bleeding after. And literally as soon as I'd come out of the nursery, he would attack me and my husband. Like it wasn't right at all. Like, and they were like, they didn't understand what was going on, but we were trying to say that it's not right, it shouldn't be like this. And like sometimes he didn't want to go with us. It was really strange, it was really, really weird. So as soon as he came out of the nursery, it was so much better. He did like come back to himself a little bit. But yeah, I found it quite traumatic, because he's very intense, Rafi. He's very, very intense. Everything is like 100 times more than another child. Like, he's so loud, he's just so extra. I don't know how to explain it, but he's just very extra. And I'm just so happy that they can just, he's just so happy in there.
And they're helping get the report done as well, aren't they, for the lighthouse?
Yeah, they're helping, they're doing the referral,
That's good.
they're helping doing his, their part, because I actually had two choices, because he is a new playgroup now, and I gave the Lighthouse two choices. I said, this is his playgroup that he's just started, or this is the creche that he's been going to for 2 years, and they know him well, but it's a creche, it's not like a full-time education thing, and they chose the creche. So I was actually surprised. I thought they'd go with the playgroup.
It's good.
So I was happy with that, because they know him better here, and they're going to get more, like a more better insight,
Yeah.
because what they see at a playgroup is different from what they see here. Because at the playgroup he does mask, whereas here he doesn't.
No, because he's comfortable.
Exactly. So it's better, because then they can see the real him. So I was.
And then,
happy
then
that
the
I did.
report's going to be more honest, isn't it? as well?
Exactly, because I do think that they don't take that into account in these reports, the masking effect, because like, I know he's different in different places, but they need to see, for these reports, they need to see how they are in two settings, so home and somewhere else. So yeah, so it is important.
Brilliant.
Because I have two other children, before I had Rafi, and I had a big gap, but I really understood it because I haven't got that family around me. I think that's what the difference is. Like, a lot of people have like a lot extended family that live with them, and I find a lot of the parent champions, they come and do this because they don't have that support network, and we're trying to find one, and here is our support network. Like, because we don't have one. Like, our family, I know, lives far away, or we don't have that much family around us. And I think that most of us have that issue as parent champions. So we just, it's our support. This is our support.
It is.
Like, without it, we'd struggle. And I knew that from when I had my eldest one. Like, when you have your first child, you do not know how much support you need when you have a child. You think you can do it all, you're indestructible, I can do everything. Like, maybe you came from a really high-powered job. I was like working in the pharmaceutical industry, you know, going to meetings, all this kind of stuff. I thought, oh, having a child is nothing, it's easy, you know. Do you know what I mean?
It's the hardest job
Yeah,
ever.
and you don't realise. And then the day one of having like, even getting pregnant is a nightmare. And then as soon as you have the child, like, it's like, what do I do now?
And then having a child with additional needs is like 10 times worse.
Exactly.
Oh,
and my
10
first
times
one had
harder, shall we
autism
say.
as well.
Yeah,
So
not worse.
Jacob, like, I didn't have any clue. It was my first child, and then he has autism, and I didn't know anything. I didn't know anything. Like, everything that I'd learned, I did all the reading up before, you know, little books and everything. Like, what do you expect when they're 1 year old and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah. My child's not reaching any of these milestones. Why is that?
Yeah, what's going on? I was like, oh, he did that one though, it's fine. Like, oh my goodness, I didn't have a clue. Like, but I didn't have any support when Jacob was little. I thought I could do it all, you know. And then when I had my second child, I was really sick. And then I realised, actually, I need help. And then I had like postnatal depression and everything, because I was so ill. I was so ill, I could not do anything. And I had an autistic child and an infant that I couldn't look after. And then when I had Rafi, I was just like, I'm setting it up in advance. Like, I tried to look for help, because I just knew, like, that I couldn't do it otherwise without some kind of network, you know. And I'm not very good at setting up networks and stuff like that. And but I like tried to put in that extra effort to find something. And then I found this, and I was just like so surprised, because I just accidentally fell into this. It was so accidental.
Yeah, mine was the same.
Yeah, I just went, like, the health visitor literally just told me to go to some groups and recommended some. I went to a group, and then I got told about Parent Champions, like, literally the first time I went to the group, and I was like, okay then, and I was in. Do you know what I mean? I was just in, because I just needed that extra something, a little extra thing to keep me.
The thing that was for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, something for me, and some kind of like
Normality.
yeah, and the adult. It's the adult conversation and everything, because like, you know, this time round I'm not a single parent. I was like after I had my second child. At this time round I'm not, but I might as well be because my husband works late. He's at work all the time.
Yeah, COVID's have in play as well.
Yeah, COVID, right? Very helpful. COVID trapped me inside the house for like with a child. Without being able to go to the things that I knew I needed to go to. So I found that really hard. So I got used to being at home, just me and him all the time. I found that really hard. And because my husband works in a restaurant, he still wasn't there. Like, it's not even like he was trapped in with me, because restaurants and that had to stay open, like, because I was doing food stuff. So I didn't have that either. But, yeah. So it was it's been quite an intense journey, yeah. We talked about it and we were like, what is it? And then we realised we weren't really doing it a lot of the time. But then when we talked through these non-negotiable things, then we realised, well, this, if it was like the perfect co-production, this is what needs to be included. But not everyone's going to be able to do that. So basically we had to then think, but then what are we talking about? We're not talking about co-production, we're talking about working towards co-production, because what you want to say is, this is what we want to do, this is what we want to work towards, but even if you can't do all of those things, the more of them you do, the closer you get to it. So it was more about that rather than it already being, and this is what you do, and this is co-production, because that never happens.
And
in real
understanding
life.
that it all has value.
Yeah, and like,
Yeah.
and also like we were talking about, what was it? It wasn't co-production. The other thing, consultation. And then we were
Too many things.
yeah. So we were talking about the difference between the two, and that most of the time we actually do consultation, and we don't realise that it's not actually co-production. It's more consultation, or it's somewhere in the middle, or it's like on a
collaboration.
range. Yeah. There's like a range between the two, and when you do more of those things, it's closer towards co-production, or you do more of these things, it's closer towards the other side. And that's what was quite interesting on the first meeting. That's what we realised. So yeah. So shall I start talking about?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
So we went through these things because these are the things to make it a proper co-production. So that nothing done for us without us. So this one was basically the people that it needs to be for need to be involved in the project. So if you're designing a children's book, then there needs to be children somewhere in the process, like their opinions.
Or at least parents.
Or at least their parents with their children, or
Yeah.
something needs to be the involvement. If you're making something for disabled people, we were talking about this example, there needs to be disabled people involved in the process.
I agree.
For the example that we had with the disabled toilets, where the people couldn't get through the corridor, but they could get into the disabled toilet, so they couldn't actually use the disabled toilet because they couldn't get in through the door.
Yeah.
Which
The
was
toilet itself was
the
accessible.
toilet was accessible, but
it
you
was
can't.
built with no disabled people being involved.
They didn't think about
They
the
didn't think
The
process.
about
access to the toilet was not accessible.
That's so funny.
Which,
It's
I mean,
not
that's
funny,
quite an
but-
extreme example.
But
Right,
it
but-
happens.
but
It
that
happens
was
because where people do more of a consultation side, we talk to the people about how to make a disabled toilet. They put the disabled toilet in. It's in there. It follows all the rules. It's passed all the regulations. Done. The first day that this place opens, it's accessible to disabled people. The disabled person in their wheelchair tries to get into the toilet, they can't get in. You know, they didn't think of it.
So it's to make sure
Yeah.
so the idea is co-production. Those people need to be involved right from the beginning, not just at that bit that they think is really important.
Yeah.
Is if they
Yeah.
turn up at that building and go, right, this is the building we're putting disabled toilet. Great, let's have a look at it all.
But also, the more time you do that as well, people get to know what the project is and how it's working. And then someone might have said, "Have you thought about the corridors?"
Yeah.
But if you're setting up consultation to just look at
Got
the
the room,
toilet, that's
yeah.
all people are going to look at.
Yeah.
You know, because we're not mind readers.
No. Yeah, exactly.
So how have you made that happen here in A Better Start Southend?
Well, for a few of the projects, we were doing these what are they called?
Scrapbooks.
Engagement events. The
Oh,
engagement
mhm,
events,
mhm, mhm.
they were based on ideas from the parent champions. So the parent champions brought an idea to the table, and then they would then work with the relevant partners, I don't know how else to say it, and to make that idea happen. But it was from the background of having a need for something. So like most, I think, did every parent champion do an engagement
Not
event?
every, no, not every, but it would be something that was led from a
Yeah.
parent champion. So
Yeah, so we were all encouraged to do one, like, but I didn't know if everyone had done one or not. But yeah, like, because we all had like an idea, and some of those were just to run an event for kids with this kind of setting, and others were like more involved. So
sometimes the ideas might identify something that's already missing in the community that
Yeah.
didn't exist or would be a benefit to their child or their family or the local community. So if we went through all of the engagement events we've ever done, you'd go, oh, this is because
they all had
it
a
was
reason.
identified a need.
Yeah, they all had a purpose. They all had a reason.
And the parent champion the parent would have identified a need and go, actually, wouldn't it be great if we did this?
And I felt the engagement events were the most co-produced because they were coming from that place where there is a need, and then all the people that needed to be involved were then brought in. But I don't feel like they were 100% co-produced, but they were working towards it.
More co-produced.
Yeah,
Yeah.
more, and they were definitely working towards it.
A bit like the winter and summer drive, like where everyone obviously donated clothes and stuff. That is a need to people that don't have like
Yeah,
money to access clothes and winter coats and boots and whatever things,
yeah.
isn't it? And that
And
was
often,
co-produced
I mean,
by-
something I don't know if it's listed there, but something we spoke about, I know another parent has spoke about previously, is that co-production, the actual idea comes from a conversation. So it's not, so when you identify a need, that is at that point you go, oh, let's do something about that. You know, how can we make that happen? It's not necessarily someone comes go, I want to co-produce this. It's because
Yeah.
a conversation took place and
Talk
we went,
about it.
we've just identified a need, what can we do about that? And let's work. And then that's where that conception point
Yeah.
is almost, you know, like you would have done for your engagement event, you would have go, I've identified a need, this helped me previously, I want it to help others.
Yeah, when I was in my the training for the parent champion thing, we all sat round and then we were asked to think about what kind of engagement event we'd like to do. And I think mine came up there. Like I had an idea, but the idea did change. It didn't stay exactly the same at the beginning as it was in the end. Because when you co-produce something, sometimes things can't happen the way you want them to happen. You have to be able to change. So like my original one was the Pilates for disabled parents, and what I wanted to do, because I'd gone through lots of health issues and stuff myself, and I felt quite isolated, and through that I learned about Pilates, because that's what helped me get out of a wheelchair, because I was in a wheelchair. But without that was through the NHS, through physio. But then they told me that all of the exercises that they do in the physio, they're all based on Pilates. And like if I got into Pilates, that would help me like in the future, but they told me which ones I couldn't do, because there's aspects of Pilates that I still can't do. But they told me, you know, this is the kind of thing that you can do and it will support you. And then I just wanted to bring that to more people, because it really did help me, because I was in a wheelchair, I couldn't do anything. And and I'm walking in that now, so it worked. But I just felt like so isolated when I was really ill, and I had 2 kids to look after, and I just felt like the mental health part of it as well. So I started working with the perinatal mental health team, and then Jen was helping me as well, and she was helping me find a Pilates instructor, and it just became this beautiful thing at the end, where it became more. It did change its name. It became Pilates for Wellbeing afterwards, and it was not just people with physical disabilities, it was mental health as well, and it all came together like that, and it was just really lovely.
It was very good.
You came to it,
I
didn't you?
did.
Yeah, it was very good, and it just became like such a nice thing. But it took ages to sort it out. It took ages to work out all the details, and the perinatal mental health team really wanted it to be like a long-term project, but they didn't have the funding for it. They wanted it to be more than one session, but because of the way that engagement events work, it couldn't be that. So it was sad. It was a shame, because they said like they do their their Monday thing, and they
The
do
walk-in, wellbeing walk.
Well,
yeah.
walk. They do loads of things.
Yeah.
They do like their wellbeing walking. They do like their talking thing where they do their courses. The perinatal mental health course. I can't remember. Sorry, that's me. I'll just turn that off. I think it's 6 weeks. Have you done it? I can't remember how many weeks it is, but they teach you what is normal thinking and what isn't, basically, and how being a mum is, and it's just amazing. Like, because when you come out the end of it, you're like, oh, okay, all the stuff I was worrying about is totally normal, and everyone has the same thoughts and things that they do, and I didn't realise. Like, I just thought, oh no, it's all me thinking about all this stuff. And then they also do like the thing afterwards. So when that course is finished, they do walks that you can go on. They do like parent groups that you can go to, which I didn't go to, but I wanted to go to. But yeah, they do so much stuff. And then when I was doing the Pilates event, they were talking about wishing that they could do that as one of their things, because I wanted to make it really relaxed and low level, so people weren't intimidated about the exercise part of it, you know, like, because as soon as the word exercise comes in it, people are like, oh, I don't know, I can't do it, I'm not well enough, I can't do this, I'm not fit, do you know what I mean? And so they wanted to do that as well, like to make it less intimidating, and it would have been good if it could have been more than one session, but you know, it doesn't always happen.
You never know what might come up.
Yeah, I know.
In the future.
Hopefully, in
Who
the
knows?
future, it was good.
But that actually, interestingly, sort of brings us on to the next 2 sections on your list, which is a really good segue. Thanks, Claire.
Oh, that's all right.
You've got equal value and equal responsibility, and you were kind of talking about that when you were talking about your Pilates event, that you brought your lived experience and your ideas and your sort of tenacity. They brought their mental health experience. Jen brought a Pilates teacher. You know, everyone brings something of value.
Yeah.
You're making those decisions together to move it forward as a group.
Yeah, and I was learning as well, like, so it was helping me learn lots of things too, and I was getting my confidence back as well. So I did feel like doing the engagement event actually helped me as well, like just as a person. But I did enjoy working with like the other departments, like in the mental health team, and I found it really hard because I had Rafi on my lap all the time. He was like literally with me, and that was hard. So like where I could, I put in as much input as I could, and then other times when I was dealing with Rafi, they were like, they still carried on, and they were, so it was very balanced, I felt.
Team effort.
Yeah, it was a full team effort. And then like it took a long time to launch because all the different people had to be there at the same time. So it wasn't just mental health and the Pilates. We also got people from other places to come in at the event as well, and they gave out leaflets and stuff. So there was people with exercises,
Did you have
classes.
there as well?
I can't remember if Trust Links was there.
Yeah,
There was
before.
yoga people, and there was something for all. Was it
Yoga
yoga
for
for
all,
all?
yeah.
And there was something else that did classes, and there was just a few. There was quite a few different things that we managed to bring together on the same day. So So it was really nice.
So it was not just putting on an event; it was sharing information and getting people to know what was in their community.
Yeah. So yeah, it was really good. And the equal responsibility decisions were made together as a group. Yeah. So anything that changed, we all had to decide. So that part did work as well. And we were obviously even going straight on to the next one, the good communication.
Because none of that happens without good communication.
Yeah, it wouldn't have worked. It literally wouldn't have worked if we
no,
hadn't communicated properly. And what we needed to do, everyone had like what they had to do at certain times. Do you know what I mean? So everyone knew what they had to do, what their part of the puzzle was, for it to come together.
And I guess even the flexibility.
Yeah.
That,
Yeah,
as you
definitely.
said the event changed, so that's that's the flexibility of what comes out of conversations and shaping. It's not a hard, rigid. This is what we're going to do, and this is what we want the outcome to be. It evolved into what it needed to be.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, it did. It evolved because you can't run something like this without having that flexibility, because if going back to the disabled toilet, if the person who was in charge of that toilet, but I done it, it's passed all the rules, it's fine, decision made. But if you're not flexible and realise and take input from the other people, then you can't get that process to be finished or to be right at the end.
If there'd been that flexibility or that communication, then that toilet would have been in a different location.
Yeah,
You know,
or it
It
wouldn't
would have actually worked.
and it
Yeah.
would have worked, exactly.
And what's interesting about that, I'm sorry I'm sort of jumping in, but this is the way my mind works, is that if you take that disabled toilet example that was created by people who weren't disabled and therefore it was not actually truly accessible, how much time and money would have been taken to fix that mistake? And if they'd actually just collaborated with disabled people from the start, they probably could have saved themselves a lot of time and money in correcting what they got wrong.
Yeah.
So when you even look at it from an economic point of view, good consultation or co-production saves time and money.
Yeah, it does.
Completely.
Because you don't have to change it. Yeah.
You don't have to change it.
Yeah.
It might take a little bit longer and
Yeah.
all those things, but they're the things that make it right.
Yeah, you don't have to go back and correct mistakes.
Yeah. Exactly. Next one.
And that's not just physical.
And that's not
accessibility.
physical, it's
It
everything.
could be emotional accessibility to those that need to be part of those conversations, like providing a creche,
Yeah,
or
the
making
creche
sure
was
the room's
main thing.
available, or making sure it's at a time that suits
Yeah.
the majority of
Yeah,
people.
when we were
that can afford
talking about this, we were really talking about creche, because we had another example. Like recently, there was an event with the council where they were bringing in parents of children who weren't in school yet to talk about SEND, but there was no creche. So
And children weren't allowed in the meeting.
children weren't allowed in the meeting.
Hey.
So there was no thought there. Oh, I mean, the first thing I said when I saw the poster, I was told about this event by 3 different departments, because they knew that it would be something that I would be interested in going to. And I said, is there a creche? And I said, well then how can I access it? It was the first thing. It was literally the first thing that they didn't even.
And
They didn't
even if there
consult.
was, and even if there wasn't a creche, was there space within that set up to accommodate children?
And they
being in that
literally
space?
said on there, no children.
Yeah.
But it was for people with children who weren't in school.
And what you can, I guess, everyone or every organisation is liable at some point to make a mistake like that. But it's are those organisations and those teams open to accepting the feedback and learning from it? Do you see what I mean? To say, right, yep, we didn't get that right.
Because
We've gotta get it
I
right
just
next
wonder
time.
how many people actually came to it.
Yeah.
It would be all the people that already have some kind of support. Because the reason I needed that help was because I needed support. But I don't have that support. So otherwise, the only people that could go are people that already have support, that already have childcare set up. They're the only people that can go. And a lot of SEND kids, it's a struggle to find childcare for, because you can't use normal childcare. You just can't. And you have to be lucky that if they do go to a setting that can support them, that it's on the right time as an event. Otherwise, you can't go. Yeah. So that I felt that was a real shame. But yeah, we were also talking about on the accessibility was about how it's set up. So if there's certain people like from council and they're all in suits and whatever, and then everyone else comes in, they're all in their casual, there's already that dynamic set up. Like you already, they're the people in charge, I'm just like a parent or whatever.
Yeah, and that's something we spoke about.
Can I contribute?
Yeah.
And something we spoke about, and when we did the mascot project many years ago, Julia, who led that, did these posters, and one of hers was you leave your identity at the door.
Yeah.
And it's like, so you leave your lanyard, you know, your uniform at the door, and you come together as a group of people, and you equally discuss those needs of that thing that we're discussing.
Yeah, exactly. But that's quite a big one, the accessibility, because you can't really do much without that.
No, and also so even with those things, that the accessibility and flexibility go hand in hand, and other parents might speak about knowing that actually if their child is in creche but they're not settled, that they can come into this space and they're not going to be asked to leave the meeting, that they still could contribute in some way. So it's creating not only accessible and flexible space, it's a safe space, it's a welcoming space, you know, it's in order for that creation to happen, all those elements have to come together.
And I remember when we were talking about the times, because we were talking about certain meetings that were on school pickup times, so they couldn't be accessible from like or nursery pickup times. They were just at the times when people needed to be somewhere else, so they didn't work. So yeah, they have to be like, if it's parents where their children are at school, it needs to be within school times, or like not at 5 o'clock. I mean, or if it's people that have kids in nursery in the morning or whatever, then it needs to be within that time. You have to actually consider the people that are going to this, that you want in there.
And that kind of jumps ahead to point 8, if I'm honest, saying taking time to get to know the people who will co-produce before the work even starts.
Yeah.
Because if you start that conversation before, you know when people are available. Great, we'll plan the work in.
Exactly. Yeah.
Have you seen there's an issue there, or is there an issue there about staff, people that are working versus people that aren't working, that everybody shares the same value for co-production and understands it. So if the creche workers, they're not physically in this room, but they know what's going on and the importance of it, so that there's a kind of partnership around the ethos of work. Is that an important thing?
Yeah, we were talking about that within that accessibility point, and it's
And
interesting because
it's all
it links to what you were
equal
saying,
value.
Sophie, about that safe space and knowing, you know, I can just be myself.
Yeah. And we did say as well in the equal value bit.
Yeah.
So we even put that in there as well, like that there is equal value, that everyone has their own thing. Like, so you have you know, your high-powered executive or whatever managing the meeting. That's what their job is, like to help you manage the meeting and maybe do that. But that's their part of it. But then your contribution is also important, you know. And it is true about the creche. Like without them, we couldn't do it. So they're so important.
Yeah.
And perhaps they don't always know. Like in the cases where they don't always know what we're actually doing, but they know it's important, and they know that what we're doing is like
They're part of that
thing.
process by supporting that space.
Yeah.
Maybe that's part and parcel of them. I think knowing the creche ladies anyway, I think they get to know your kids anyway, regardless. But there might be a thought in their head, and I've sort of picked up on this a little bit from talking to Kaylee before, that if they get to know the kids, they can support the kids, so they hopefully don't have to come and get the parents who are in the important meeting.
Yeah.
So it's all, like you say, it all goes hand in hand.
Yeah. And they do work towards like being like keeping them in there so that they are happy in there. There is there.
Yeah, and if they don't want to take them out, that's like, because they want them to be in there and happy, like
When I think
which they generally are.
Yeah, when I think about one of the projects, again, the mascot projects, that was probably one of the main times we've ever used creche as part of that experience. So in order for the mascot to be created, we ran workshops that were supported by the creche team for the children.
Right.
So this is where we were capturing the children's voice. And
It's like we did for the research as
yeah,
well.
yeah. So they were in that space, supporting children, doing what they do best. So the creche will have their space when they're needed in that.
Children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
So
did.
that was it. That was interesting.
Yeah, yeah, because didn't look like it would be research, did it? But it was just the way they were playing and drawing and
Yeah, like
colouring and
what we
things
think
like
of as
that.
research, we don't
Yeah,
understand. We
no.
didn't understand until we started learning about how they were doing the research. Like I didn't have a clue because from my background, microbiology background, so all of it's all about data and facts, you know. And then the way this kind of research is, it's all about how we speak and what we say and how we feel and stuff like that. And it's so different. Like I just did not have a clue about it at all.
And that was the ABSS research team conducting different forms of research to evaluate the impact of the programme. I
Yeah.
thought it was great that they wanted to try and figure out how the children felt
Yeah.
about the programme
Yeah.
through their research. And that's like you say, that's where they had to pull the creche team in to support them with those
Yeah.
sessions.
They got them to do like a consent form by putting a sticker on it. I loved
Do you
it.
consent?
They
Well, it
were
was so
literally like,
great,
here's a
except-
sticker. If you think that's okay, can you put it on there? They were like, okay.
And Rafi did not have a clue what he was talking
No, I
about.
thought it was like,
It was like
sticker.
way over his head, but I'm sure like I like the idea of it,
Yeah.
but I do think like some children just I don't think they're at that level of understanding. But it was good though. It was good. It was funny because Rafi's like, I don't want a sticker on. Like it was just he didn't want a sticker on. It wasn't that he didn't want to talk to anyone.
Yeah.
And then he was like, and I said, it's just talking to Nathaniel. And he was like, oh, okay then. He didn't mind that because he likes him. He's done his nails and everything.
Oh,
Yeah, there's a picture in my books.
was that as part of the research session? He was doing Nathaniel's nails?
Not in that one.
No,
Like
no.
when he's come into meetings and stuff before,
It was
They're buddies.
something.
they're
Yeah,
real
it
buddies.
was.
Yeah, they really hit it off. And yeah, he has his little bag of shiny things and his little nail polishes and stuff. So he was doing his nails. It was very funny.
Nathaniel is one of our researchers.
You want to stretch first?
No, I'm right. I'm
You're
stretched.
right now?
Yeah.
You're good, okay.
That's fine.
Yeah, so when we were talking about this in the meeting, the adequate funding, so with co-production, we were talking about how it does take more funding maybe than a consultation. So you would need to know that when you decided to do a co-production, you would need to know like how much funding you had, because to bring in the people and to pay for creches and to it would take more time as well. So you have more cost involved. So you have to have that in the beginning.
You would have to build in contingencies as well.
Yeah,
So when you
if it
co-produce
ran over.
something, there you have to bear in mind that because it's a naturally evolving thing, even if it has a final deadline, could take longer than planned, or it might have different things that move in that will cost money in order for it to continue. So it's being mindful of funding and contingency and time and space.
So, and we were talking about that, like some people might have this idea, I want to do this co-production, but they might not have the funds to do it. And then you can't do that. You need to think about what you can do, take out the parts that you can do and do them, but you don't have to do everything if you can't do it. If you don't have the money to do it, you can't do it. So you need to accept that.
Yeah,
To
and
some
also,
level.
I mean, so just, I don't know if that's okay, but we can jump to just after question 8, there's a paragraph there that talks about Rachel's comments, and she says that actually deciding on bringing in people at the last, not the last minute, too further down the line, isn't co-producing.
Yes.
So you know,
Yes.
you might have gone. We've had a few meetings, and now we'll bring the parents in, or we'll bring those people in.
Bring them
That's
to the
almost too. That's not co-producing. That's still valuable,
Yes.
but it's not co-producing.
It's more like a consultation because you have done your part of it, you've decided what you're going to do already, and then you're just getting opinions. So then it's more like.
Or
a
even if
consultation.
even if at that point then you carry on working with those parents, that's still not quite co-produced. It's still collaborative.
It's like half.
Yeah, it's
It's like
collaborative.
halfway. Yeah.
Well,
So
I
yeah,
guess
we were
if
talking
you
about that.
were going to do co-production in that way, you'd have to go into it being prepared to change what you've already decided, depending on
And
what people are saying.
Yeah. So that brings it down to the question 8, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Like the point 8.
You've got to do it right.
Yeah, if you don't do it right from the start.
It's not going to go well.
Yeah.
It's not going to.
Yeah, and then like obviously if the parents that you're involving, I mean it doesn't have to be parents. This is about any co-production, isn't
Yes,
it?
of course.
But say you were doing something for like pensioners or something, if you've not involved them from the start, then you don't know where you're going to go from. Like if you're just designing a service for pensioners, but you haven't ever spoken to a pensioner, then it's not going to work.
Well, it's like planning the party, isn't it? It's the same thing if you're like planning a party with somebody and you actually haven't asked the person whose party is what they want. You're not going to get the final result.
And no one's going to go to it.
And no one's going to
No
go.
one's gonna go to the party.
Because the person whose party it is not what they wanted.
Yeah.
It's
So
like-
yeah.
Yeah.
So you need, like, once you know what your audience is, what your idea is,
I
almost
agree.
you need to, before you even start, that's what that point is
Yeah.
about. Before you start, you need to know the people that it's going to affect.
And that's going back to the conception. So when we talked about how things happen in a conversation, is if you think there's the likelihood that you've got some funding to do some work within a community, get to know the community first.
I agree.
Before the idea even's formed almost, go, want to do something, there's a need here, we're not sure what it looks like, but let's speak to some people first. And then once you do that, then that is your starting point, isn't it? And then from there, people will decide whether they want to be part of that journey, not part of that journey. How do we make it accessible so they're part of that journey? You know, it's formed, but that takes more time. That takes a lot more time.
It does.
So
it's like opening a business. You've got to find out if that business is what people want.
why would you open a cake shop next door
and
to
no
3
one
other
wants
cake
cake.
shops?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if you want any more.
No, that's fine. I mean, the point for me is interesting in that it's about, say, for taking the example of the pensioners, it's about how you engage, or how it leads to the time when they are involved in the decision making process and how that happens. You know what I mean?
To find the people. So when you have an idea. It could start like if someone was asking a question, and then from that question they realised, hang on a minute, we need to do something here. And then from that, then you could go, okay, but we need to find the people.
So I guess
then you go and find the people.
So if I think about like in the early days of when the engagement team were doing their work, they would hold parent forums.
And it's the tea and tots though.
Yeah, which is what the old parent forums were.
Is that what it was?
Yeah,
And then it just changed
and
to
they changed
tea
tea and tots because people wanted something different, and that's what we did. We listened and we changed it. But parent forums were the place where you came with your ideas, and we created that space, and you discussed as a group of parents what your ideas were, and then you could and you might even vote and say, well, actually, I like this idea. Yeah, so do I. How could we make that? So those discussions, those initial discussions happened in a space, and they're really important spaces.
I do wonder what that was like, because I only came at the end, so I only saw them when they're tea and tots. But I think if I'd seen something that said parent forum, I might have been a bit intimidated and not gone, which is maybe why.
Well, it was just different. So it was a different setup. COVID changed a lot, and it developed in a different way after that. And parents wanted a different thing. But yes, I think if I was an organisation and I was like, I want to do something in a community, I think what you would do is set up a workshop first. You would set up a workshop in order to attract that community.
Or you would have like outreach workers where they would go to certain groups that already exist.
Yeah.
So, because I've
So that
seen
makes
that
sense
before as well. I've even seen like people in like little uniforms come to other things.
So
you
picking
know?
that apart, you're right. So what you would do is you would do the outreach work first, identify some groups, and then try to bring them into a space first.
Yeah.
To for them to come up with an idea
Yeah.
that might work in that community.
Because then you could find that community, because there's already the community there. You just have to find it.
Yeah.
So there's always little groups of different charities run different things and things.
Yeah.
You know, so then say we go back to the pensioners like as an example. I'm sure that there's little groups that people go to already. Yeah, and there's all little things that happen already. So you just need to find those groups that already exist to talk to the people. Then you can design what you want to do so that you can get the people together.
Yeah. Or it's about them making it accessible for them.
Yeah,
because
exactly. 'Cause you can ask them, can't you?
Yeah, because in terms of them being pensioners, they might actually say, well, I can only get to this space.
Yeah.
And I can only get to this space. So how do you bring these people together?
And again, that's something that we thought about when we were doing like all the things we do, like bus routes, like accessibility of the actual locations, like that. It's really hard for like us Shoeburyness people to get to where the Westcliff people are, and the Westcliff people to get to the Shoeburyness people, because it's so long Southend.
Yeah.
Like we're at either end, aren't we?
Yep.
So yeah, that kind of thing
Yep.
that did affect stuff, didn't it? How much we had to learn and develop during our processes, like as parent champions, we had to learn to deal with meetings, and we were talking about how when we first went to meetings, we couldn't immediately just jump in and be the person we needed to be.
Yeah.
It took like maybe 3 meetings before we actually could contribute as much as we wanted
And feel
to.
confident to contribute as well.
Yeah, and be like how we needed to be, and know what we needed to be able to ask for, and know how to ask for the things that we needed to support us. Like me with my dyslexia stuff, like I didn't even know how to ask for that kind of support in the beginning. Like I just tried to fit in as best as I could, like just sort of slink in and like keep my head down and not really know what was going on. And then by the 3rd meeting you realise actually I really do want to be more involved in this, and you think actually I need support, I need to do this, and then you can ask for it. But it's the same with any co-production. Right at the beginning, you're not going to be the team that you need to be until you've got to know each other. That's the first thing.
Yeah.
You know what all your needs are, and that doesn't happen straight away. You have to learn each other, especially if it's going to be a long project. That's what we've learned. Like some projects are a bit longer than others. Some are really short things. That maybe like some of the engagement events were probably didn't have as much planning needed. They were literally putting some activities together, finding a place.
That's that. Yeah.
Yeah, done. But then others were a bit more involved, a bit longer, needed more people involved. Then that's where your communication becomes more important. You know, everyone needs to be up to speed, and that can take time, and then that has the extra cost. And we were talking about all the soft skills as well, which also has extra costs. Like at most events, there's drinks, there's tea, there's coffee, there's water, there's biscuits, do you know what I mean? You need all these soft things to make it more relaxed environment, so that people aren't, I need to rush, I need to go and have something to eat, I need to do this. Do you know what I mean?
And also the flexibility. And if you arrive late, that's okay. If you need to leave early, that's okay.
Yeah.
You know, so that it becomes a safe space as well. So
Yeah, it's not the same as a job, but you need to also then have your responsibility as well. So it's and that's part of the flexibility, isn't it? Like to know, like everyone's got like certain responsibilities, but we all communicate that like with each other as well, like so that everyone knows. Like so, you know, everyone knows that sometimes a bit late because Rafi's a bit of a nightmare sometimes. Like I say sometimes, but all the time. and then like other people, they live far away and they don't have a car maybe, so they have to rely on public transport. So that's going to affect you, that kind of thing. You know, so we all know. Oh, you know, we know who the late people are. We know who the early people are.
But
You know,
somebody
but
would
that- but
hold that though,
that's
don't
that's
they?
good
It
communication.
doesn't just happen.
Yeah.
Someone, often it's a worker, or it might be somebody from within the community, but somebody holds that as a job. I mean, it might not be their job, obviously, but someone says, right, I take this on, either officially or unofficially. If it doesn't happen, then you might not turn up. You think, well, I'm late, I can't go. Whereas you've communicated that that's fine.
Yeah.
And more often than not, so I've had a message to say I'm running late.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
had that with Shakira, didn't we, on one of those meetings where she's like, I'm running late. And I said, no problem, come the back way, I'll meet you. It made it accessible for her, so she knew that actually she could walk into that meeting late and still contribute.
And we all know, because we're like all parents, we know like kids do stuff like as you're leaving. It's exactly that. It's exactly that. Or something happens and they throw up or something. What are you going to do? You have to deal with the situation the way it happened. You never know what's going to happen when you've got kids. It could be anything. Like with Rafi, it's that he gets in the bath with his clothes on. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, did you have to do that now? Like, yeah. Okay.
I guess this list of non-negotiables is whoever is holding that group, this is what they need to think about.
Yeah.
And it's so hard to divide it out and go 1, 2, 3 because
They all
consulting right from the start means that you can make sure you're accessible for those people.
Yeah.
You can be
They all link to each
flexible,
other.
You can build good communication.
All in different
you
orders as well.
Yeah.
So and actually they almost demonstrate co-production, because what happens, you do the first action and you might have to do the second action, then go back to the first action and then go.
Yeah, these are not in
that's what
order.
co-production. And that's what co-production is continually
No, they're not in there.
going back and making
Yeah,
sure you're
no.
feeding back through that loop.
And they can't be. So I was just saying, these are not in order, and they don't have to be in order, and they can change, like, and mix around, and they all
And be
link to each
repetitive,
other.
yeah.
And you can do things more than once.
So could you give us the list? Just name
Yeah.
them. You don't
So-
have to call them 1, 2 or 3, but just
Yeah.
a list of 3.
So I'll just do the titles, not what they are, because we're going to talk. Nothing done for us without us. Equal value. Equal responsibility. Good communication. Flexibility. Accessibility. Adequate funding. And do it right from the start. All right, we ready? Okay, so co-production is, in my mind, a group of people working together on a goal, equally.
Yep.
Basically, that I'm.
How does it differ from consultation?
Okay, so consultation is a set of people asking an opinion of other people, but don't necessarily have to use that opinion. I think.
And collaborative.
What's collaborative is people working together, but not necessarily all being in charge of the decision. I think if you're collaborating with people, you have maybe separate teams talking to each other to work together on an idea, but
you're not physically producing it.
they're not maybe all producing it together. Maybe one person maybe is in charge of that, so it's not the same. So a co-production, everybody's in charge, not one person. Whereas a collaboration, there may be one person in charge, like maybe the council or something is in charge. They have a plan for something and they're just getting teams together to work together on a project. That's what I think of as collaboration.
Co-production for me, I think, is just us all working together. But I think we just do that anyway. Like if we're ever working on a project together, I think we're always on the same page and seem to get the final product that we want. Generally.
I'm just going to pick on the title, working towards co-production. co-production is a word that's used very easily and can be overused. So it's important to understand the value of working towards it and not think that if you don't co-produce, it's not worthy. So working towards co-production should always be the goal, but it doesn't devalue the work that is done anyway.
Because
and also to say that even if you start off co-producing and it changes, that's okay, because circumstances can change over a time and a period. People come out of that space, new people go into that space. So it's flexible space. So if it starts off as co-production but doesn't end that way, that's also okay. The fact is that people came together to do something.
Because sometimes things can start as one thing. So they could start as I forget the word. Sorry. As a consultation. They could start as a consultation, and then from that they could realise actually this needs to be a co-production. Or it could even go the other way. So it could start as a co-production, then the money runs out, but you have all this resource that you have got so far, and then you go from there. You have to go from there with what you have, and then that then becomes a consultation in a way, because you've had that information from the co-production, which is then led by someone.
Yeah. So it's no longer a co-production. It
becomes
something
else, like a consultation. And the same with the collaboration. Like you could be thinking that you're doing co-production, but actually it's collaboration because they're very similar. But because one person is in charge or one department, then it can't be co-production. But you can be as close to co-production as you can, and that's the working towards co-production.
So do you think that the kind of tipping point might be if you're working with a group of people and you have joint responsibility for decision making and you all need to make a decision together to move that project forward, is that the tipping point to co-production?
Yeah,
The point that you're making decisions together and not one person leading that decision.
But you have to think, actually, that's quite rare.
Yeah.
That is really rare. Like, so you could really, really think that actually this is co-production, but actually, really, there's usually one person that actually makes the decision at the end. You can all decide together, but the person that actually makes it happen could still just be one person.
Yeah.
But you don't always realise that when you're in it.
My decision
Yeah, you
making,
could.
but if I want this booklet to be totally pink, I'll make it totally pink. You know.
Or you can influence it, or you can have limited choices. So, like, I did notice that with the Southend Supports Breastfeeding project, there was limited choices. So it was like not really a full co-production. It was like they were saying it was co-production, but it wasn't, because they would give us options and say, well, do you like this or this one? That's not co-production. That is, do you like this one or this one? That's not co-production.
That's just your opinion.
It's an opinion. It's like not the same at all.
No.
So you may find that you think you're doing a co-production, so everyone's around the table, there's different teams, there's people, everyone's working together. But at the end of the day, the person who's fronting the money really is the main decider. So say it's you have a fund and that fund is run by the council. At the end of the day, if they don't like whatever you've produced in this, they have that last say, and they can say, actually, well, you can't do that. So you can do all this co-production that you think you're doing, but actually it does come down to that to some level.
Because
So you're
someone
doing
hasn't shared the power,
Yeah.
Yeah.
would you say?
Well, yeah, to some extent. I mean, and that's always going to happen to some extent.
And I guess those people that are going into that space need to own that, don't they? They need to say,
So they
actually,
could say that
I
from
will
the
make
beginning.
the final decision, and that's
Like
fine.
we can co-produce this as far as this, but at the end of the day, it's our money pot, isn't it?
And I need to take it somewhere else to get it signed off.
Yeah.
But what's interesting about that is that I think if you were trying to work in a really co-production way, where you're trying to share that power, you might be that person that comes in and says, actually, we're not able to do this. So what do we want to do instead? Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Instead of saying, we're not able to do this, so I'm going to do this instead.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know,
So
you're
you can
still
do it in a
throwing
same.
that
Yeah,
back out
exactly.
again.
So you could
Yeah.
do it in that way. Then that's a nicer way.
Yeah.
You know, it's a nicer
I
way,
agree.
and it's the way that you would want to
Yes,
work to,
I agree.
and that's why the title is working towards co-production, because that's our aim, isn't it? Everyone wants to do it this amazing, shiny way, Yeah,
What did I say
we
last
want
time?
to, don't we?
Co-production is a really easy word to say. It's a really hard thing to do.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah,
that's
it
what
is.
we were trying to say. Like we all would love every project in the world to be done this way, but it can't happen like that. But we can try and make it happen like that, can't we?
Yeah.
So, I'm sorry, just so, but if it doesn't happen, is it? Are you saying
It's not always a bad thing.
but you're saying the process was co-production, but it ends up not being
Yeah,
co-production.
it can be, but it doesn't mean that it's a bad thing. That's the thing. It's not a bad thing. Just
Brilliant.
because you can't get it 100% co-produced doesn't mean it's bad. But to be working towards that is good.
It doesn't mean to say that it's not been co-produced before, it's actually
Yeah.
the final project.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what comes down to good communication for all of it.
Yes.
Actually, if you're honest with people about what you can and can't do, or if things are changing or whatnot,
Yeah, then it can,
Right.
because in a proper co-production, yes, someone may be having like the control of the money, but if they're honest, like you're saying, they have the budget. This is what we can do. We can't do any more than that. Everybody around the table knows that's what they can do. They know the constraints of it. But if you then say, well, actually, I have the money, but actually I need to go to someone else to sign it off, and then they have to decide whether we're actually doing it or not. That's not really fully quite,
Co-producing that, is it?
yeah. But then we were also saying that collaboration and the other one, consultation, are not bad.
they've got
Just
value.
they have value. Just because you can't do the full co-production doesn't mean that collaboration and consultation are bad, because there's places for them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course.
In the same way that listening to feedback is still equally as
Yeah,
good.
of course.
You know, it's different. But
It's
But
different,
if
that's
you're
the
listening to
issue.
feedback and you're able to action something from that feedback, then it's done its job.
Yeah, that's what you have to understand, that they all have their place, and then none of them are bad. They are just different.
And on that note, Chris.